everybody, we're back. It's Sophie and Marco, Dish on the Movies. Okay, we want to do first Angel Heart. Released in 1987, Angel Heart takes place in 1955 in New York City and later on moves to New Orleans, Louisiana. It is based on a book called Falling Angel, an Edgar Award finalist by William Hortzberg. The main character, Harry Angel, played by Mickey Rourke, is a private detective who runs a hole-in-the-wall detective agency. A prestigious law firm contacts Angel and says they have a mysterious client who wants to use his services. Angel decides to meet Robert De Niro as Louis Cypher, an enigmatic bearded man dressed in black, carrying an ornate silver cane and brandishing long manicured fingernails which looked weird and unsettling. Cypher asked Angel to find a singer named Johnnie Favorite who performed in clubs around the city and was seriously injured in World War II. He left the war and ended up in a private rehab facility outside New York City. Recently, Louis Cypher paid Johnnie Favorite a visit, but the staff informed him that they discharged Favorite years ago and didn't know where he went and who had come to get him. Because they have unfinished business, Cypher wants Angel to find Johnnie Favorite. After Angel finds the rehab facility, he questions the staff and inspects the discharge papers. Interestingly, the discharge notations were written in ballpoint pen, a writing implement that had not been invented in the year Johnnie Favorite left the facility. So starting from the doctor whose name was on the discharge papers, it's a foot race by the detective to determine what happened to the missing singer. Okay, Marco, take it away.
What happened to the missing singer? It's pretty scary and depressing.
Yeah.
It's the most depressing movie ever. Because I got her to watch this movie. Originally, this was supposed to be some other movie I forgot about, and I was like, oh god, this is the most depressing movie ever. And she was like, oh no, I don't want to watch that.
I don't like depressing movies.
And then she watched it and she said it wasn't depressing, which is really weird. It's depressing. It's a very small and intimate story that really, I mean, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of violence and detective elements, and Mickey Rourke is at his best because
yes.
I've never seen him before except for in Iron Man 2. And I've never seen like any of his old roles, but I guess he was really a good actor, and he looks completely different than he does now. It looks like he was sent to hell and then he came back today. And I thought everybody else in the movie was great, and Robert De Niro was he was very silent and not
very talkative.
Not those types of demons or bad guys that are just like really outlandish and stereotypical, and like he was very subtle, and so I wish he would play a bad guy more often instead of just being in these like bad dirty grandpa where he's and then these other movies where he's just having a paycheck, and in this movie he's actually working, and everybody in this movie is working really hard.
Did you forget about The Godfather?
I've never seen The Godfather.
Well, he worked a lot in The Godfather. In fact, when I looked at him in this movie, I kept seeing The Godfather.
Okay, yes, I have seen The Godfather. I saw the first one and I loved it. Although I thought it left too many open ends, and then the second one I didn't like it. So
Whatever, that's your
I
problem.
preferred Al Pacino in the first movie. I thought he was better.
They were both good. That was a good movie, but we better stick to this
And
movie. But
so
he was good in this movie. He played a definite character, very unique, completely different than what he's been playing, what we've seen as of late, these comedy movies, which Marco talked about, where it was like he's getting a paycheck and he didn't have to do much acting, except to be goofy and weird.
and I would say that this is probably the best example of a detective movie you could give somebody that's more modern, because there aren't a lot of really modern detective movies unless they're like spoofing Sherlock Holmes or
Yeah.
doing Sherlock Holmes again, and so this is a great detective story, and it was a private detective too. And The Nice Guys is another great detective movie. Although this one, it's funny, but it's also scary at the same time. It has a balance of just having fun on an adventure, and then really scary, dark violence, and people getting ritualistic murdered, and their bodies are like taken apart, and I this is a universe that I would like to see more of.
Well,
So
he's talking about this ritualistic uh, practices
we
that
can't
were
spoil.
very not very in depth covered in the movie, which that's okay. It's not really what it's about. I mean, it did play an integral part, I guess, to the character and who he was. But um, the character of Johnnie Favorite, but anyway, he's talking about voodoo, and the movie, like I said, it took place in New York City and then moved to New Orleans.
Whereas the book only takes place in New York.
That's right. In the voodoo, apparently a little bit of it, the bad things came out in New York, but when they went to New Orleans, you actually saw the ritual. This ritual was in the middle of the night, and they talked a lot more about it at that time. But seems to like the. It is interesting, and to integrate that into the story, it does make it more interesting, and it gives it a unique flavor. And there are some detective movies.
Not modern.
Yeah, there are, but they're on the Hallmark Channel, and
No,
I
those
know
aren't good movies.
they're based on female detectives, and it's not like they have a detective agency. I can think of the one, I can't think of the name, and I should know. I've read several of the books, but she's a caterer, and so that's the. But like he's saying, and I'm saying too, there are no. If you can think about, there are no other real detective like a New York detective or a Philly detective or L.A. detective movie out there, modern, like this one. And this really didn't take place now. It took place in an earlier time, like
the 50s.
Yeah, in 1955.
When we get to the spoilers, I'll tell you the best shot of the movie, or the best scene in the movie. And also, I'll just reiterate again, I'd like to see more in this world, like sequel-wise. I would not like to see any remake or any reboot, whatever. I'd like to see maybe a sequel. And if there's no sequel ideas, then just don't do it, because if don't force anything. But if there is something there, I mean, I won't say until the spoilers, but there's this other character who's possibly in this universe, and and we could still meet him, and he could be a bad guy or good guy or whatever. And so I would say this movie is great, and we have it on Amazon forever. And it, I won't probably watch it every year, but I'll probably watch it like every couple of years or so. So I would give this movie. I'm formulating my food meal right now, whatever. I give this movie Cajun chicken tenders with spicy green beans with bacon bits and a twice baked potato with lemonade. And that's like a southern type of dish. A lot of spiciness, a lot of,
Well,
the
New
green
Orleans.
beans and everything like that. So
Cajun.
I was gonna put also ketchup with the chicken tenders for all the blood, and the twice baked potato is because of the twist.
Okay, well, I I just want to warn people, and it's kind of a spoiler, but I don't care. There's some nudity in the movie, and
Hey!
that might bother some people. So if you don't want to see the nudity and you don't want to see
Spoiler.
the blood, because there's murders, and I'm sorry, but it's a detective movie, and it's about murders. It's also about murders. It's not just about finding Johnnie Favorite, um, and Robert De Niro wants him found because he's got some business to take care of with him. But if you don't want that, you can read the book. The book is very easy to read, and it goes fast. And
That's right.
what's
There's If you don't like the human anatomy, then you're not gonna want to watch this movie.
well, and I'm an older person, and maybe you might say that kind of thing would have bothered me. It didn't bother me at all. The way they did it, it was very blurry, and it was kind of like a dream, and it was fuzzy, and it was just really, there was music playing sometimes, and you'd see blood on the wall. I mean, it was just done really like artistically, and didn't bother me one bit, but it might bother, and I just wanted to warn people because I know that.
And not art for the sake of being art, like in Prime Fuller's Hannibal.
Well, I just wanted to warn people because I know that is offensive to some people, and that's why I say. But I really liked the movie, but I like the book too. I'm reading the book because I wanted to see. I don't know. For some reason, I just wanted to see what the book was like compared to the movie. And actually, they follow each other very closely, except for the change in setting. The book takes place in New York City only, and all the voodoo stuff. It can, if people want to practice voodoo, they can practice it anyway. They don't have to be in the South or in New Orleans or in Haiti, where it's just where it's from. But they can be in New York City. So I liked the movie and I liked the book because there's so many twists, and it's like in the movie anyway. The twists come near the end, and there's more than one, and it's really actually some of them are surprises. I would liken to a surprise, but kind of like an ugly surprise. And there's also what's interesting, and it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I won't say exactly. But there's plays on words and word clues in the movie, and in the book, when you read it and you can see the words, then you might, if you're more clever than I was when I was watching the movie and reading the book. Well, after I watched the movie, I started reading the book. I already knew. I already had found out about the word clue. But let's say somebody had never seen the movie and they're reading the book, they might be able, if they're more clever than me, to pick up the clues that are right at the beginning, all the way through. And and if you hear it in the movie,
Well, even if
you don't know.
even if you figure them out, it's kind of like.
Well, it still doesn't tell you what's going to happen or anything.
But it's also dreadful because you know something
is going to be bad.
horrible is going to happen.
Right. So I mean, you would get more of, because when you're watching the movie and even when you're reading the book, you don't know where it's going to lead you. You have no idea because what happens is totally, completely in the alien universe. Anyway, since I really enjoy, because I'm really good at, most of the time, really good at figuring out what's going to happen, and that's can be a bummer because that means it's kind of predictable, and so but this time I would never have predicted what happened, and like I said, the word clues did bypass my brain. So I gave it a tasty pork sandwich with the topping of pickled coleslaw as a tribute to the surprises, albeit ugly, in the end. And that's it. So, do you want to say anything about like a spoiler?
Spoilers! He had sex with his daughter!
Okay, that's enough. I don't know if I would have given that spoiler away because that really might freak somebody out. But don't let that freak out because
Well, if they've already seen the movie, that's why they're watching the spoiler part. If they haven't watched the movie, then they're insane. And I would encourage them to erase their memory and then watch this movie because you just got screwed.
well, to be fair, now I haven't finished reading the book, but in the movie he is absolutely devastated because he didn't know.
Yeah,
and
because
didn't
he's in
realize.
denial.
Well, but he was seriously injured, and he did not, it affected his learning or his remembering, and so he was devastated, and he was, how would you call it? It would be like if you abhor something, he was totally had that kind of feeling when he discovered what happened and what he did, and he wasn't for it, and he wasn't some kind of a sexual abuser. He was really upset because he just didn't know. He had a memory, memory
I
loss.
bet the actor wasn't disgusted.
I don't know. I don't want to say anything about that because that would be like a personal attack when we wouldn't want to do that since we don't know the person personally. So I think we should move on then to our next review.
The best scene of this movie
Okay.
is when he walks on the bus and he goes to the seat in the bus where it has a colored sign on it.
Yeah, because he's down south, and in the back it has a sign that said "Coloreds." Was it coloreds only?
Coloreds
or the coloreds?
only.
And he's sitting, because he's from New York.
He's sitting right there.
He's sitting in the seat, and he's from New York City, so he's like oblivious to that. They don't have that in New York City, and he's in New Orleans where they have this
he's a rebel.
segregation crap he's never seen before, so he's just like, I don't even know. He doesn't say anything about it. The person who's watching the movie sees the sign and like, oh my God, that's for real. And all the African American people were in the back of the bus, and I just
and they're looking at him and
like, what are you doing? I can tell you're not from here. So I thought that was actually really good.
I would say that's probably like in the top character choices ever made in a movie is having him sit in the colored section.
That's what it says, and Marco isn't being disrespectful. That is what the sign says on the seat. Okay, so he's quoting what is said on the seat, which is the way it was back then when there was segregation in the South. So, actually, I enjoyed that scene too. I can't think of anything better. It wasn't your
favorite scene, though.
Well, I can't think of anything better than that.
All the times that he said that he has a problem with chickens and they scare him or something. And
I guess my favorite scene is, it's not really the scene, but seeing Robert De Niro dressed all in black but showing his fingernails, which really impacted me in a negative way because it was really ew. and spew and ugly and unsettling and weird. And it should have tipped me off, because you know what it made me think of? Rosemary's Baby. And I won't say another word about it.
Because we're not reviewing that movie, and people who are watching the spoiler section have never seen that, so.
Yeah, but that's just
the feeling.
The feeling was very unsettling.
Well, I guess you never went to elementary school, because in elementary school, every single year, there would be this snobby little kid who would buy the Guinness World Record book at the book fair, because it was almost like a competition at the book fair who would get the most expensive book. It had nothing to do with what the book was about or what the book had in it. They just said, oh, this book is worth $50, so I have to get that. And so they would bring that into class, and they would pass it around the class, because they thought that it was and so anyway, never mind. And anyway, in the book they had these women, and they had these fingernails that were all the way they were curled around. It was so disgusting. It's even more gross than the Robert De Niro's fingernails, and
they were just a little bit long, but it was still weird, and they were very nicely shaped and manicured. I mean, but they were weird. It was just weird. I don't know.
And he only eats eggs.
I don't remember that.
I don't think he eats anything else, because they don't show him. He was in that cafe, and he said, you know, in some cultures, the egg is supposed to represent the soul. And then he started rolling it around and eating it like, wow, that's really creepy. And, okay, so what I was talking about earlier, I'd like to see more, is that Louis Cypher is the devil. So there's obviously got to be a god in this universe. And even though I'm not religious, I would like to see that character in this universe, because it's a very dark universe, and I'd like to see, like, is God like hiding as a billionaire too or something, and to see them go at each other, that would be cool. That's what I'd like to see from the series. So.
Okay, well, I think we better go to our next movie.
Yeah.
Except I'll wait for the farm machine to go by. Brother. Okay, well, the next movie is actually a more modern movie, because it came...
1, 2, 3...